I'm hosting with Matthew. And I am the Research Engagement Manager at Autodesk Technology Center located in Boston. And we've been hosting these series to highlight the growing collaborations across our teams and also spotlight the innovative work happening in the industries that Autodesk supports. If you have an external speaker that you think would be a good fit for our future series, please invite them to participate as a speaker in this program. I'll share a link in the chat shortly so that you can bookmark. We have a great speaker today, Scy, joining us from Cuebric, and I will have Matthew, our sponsor, introduce her shortly. But just a reminder that we will have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but you are welcome to pre-submit your questions or raise your hand at the end. And now I will hand it over to Matthew to introduce today's speaker and give insight into their connection.
Great. Thank you so very much, Jihu, and welcome everybody to the Research Connections talk today. I am super excited to introduce Scy Heidekamp as the lead speaker, head of product from Cuebric in this talk. I first became aware of Scy and her work at Cuebric at this year's NVIDIA Spring GTC conference in March. This is where Scy sat on a number of panels and gave a number of talks discussing both practical ways in which generative AI is affecting creative industries and some higher level discussions about the impact such technology is having on those industries. In both contexts, Scy grounded her perspectives with how the Cuebric team is creating technology that leverages generative AI image making specifically for virtual production. And I found this work at Cuebric highly fascinating because it takes an already disruptive technology like virtual production for filmmaking and further disrupts it with the combination of creating generative AI graphics. It became more fascinating to learn that Scy considers herself a creative technologist and media artist motivated to democratize technology for creators. And it is from these two perspectives that I wanted to invite Scy and Cuebric into our Research Connection series to share how their journey in developing Cuebric came about, reflecting on their current status, and leaving room for what I hope will be a rich discussion. So welcome, Scy and Cuebric.
Thank you, Matthew. We had a great conversation after GTC, and I'm really happy for this opportunity to speak to Autodesk Research. So I'm actually curious to see how many of you are familiar with virtual production. Anyone? Yeah, okay, all right. And what about AI tools? I'm sure most of you must have heard. Maybe you've even seen Cuebric on 60 Seconds last weekend, where we were with our founder, Pinar.
60 minutes, not 60 seconds, but...
yeah. 60 minutes, maybe I got it wrong. So I will give you an introduction to generative AI for virtual production and how we built Cuebric to bring high quality film backgrounds to all creative professionals and also to content creators. So let me start by introducing you to the Cuebric team members that I brought with me today. Andre, our head of technology, and Simon, our head of partnerships. And they will be available for any of your questions after this presentation as well. My name is Scy Heidekamp. I'm the head of product, and I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So I have a background as a media designer, and I always had specialized in creative new technologies. And I dived deep into AI in 2020, which is during my master's where I studied future design. And this is about the same time where I started working as an AI artist at Seyhan Lee. And Seyhan Lee is founded by Pinar Seyhan Demirdag and Gary Lee Gutke, who are also the founders of Cuebric, where I'm now head of products. But I started at Cuebric in a more artistic role at first because of my organizational skills and talent for marketing. I kind of rolled into product management under great guidance of our team and grew into a role as a head of product. On the side, I still work as creative technologist, exploring all kinds of intersections between art and technology. So as an artist working with generative AI, at the moment you can notice quite a bit of pushback. Most of the concerns come from fear of AI replacing the artist. How do you stay relevant when AI does all the creativity? But I believe that art is everything that is human. It's our vision, our emotions, and our capability to think outside of the box that makes it art. And it's in the contrast to AI, which is actually very limited to the data that it was trained on and that was provided by humans in the first place. And it's also not the first time that we've seen this kind of pushback on new major developments in the creative industry. Actually, the industry has seen a lot of groundbreaking changes. Right now, generative AI and virtual production are bringing creative expression to a whole new level by democratizing storytelling and content creation to a wider group of people than just the major Hollywood studios. So virtual production is a method of filmmaking with virtual content to create environments and effects for film productions. And we often refer to virtual production when displaying a computer-generated background on an LED stage and shoot live action in front of it. Here you can see an example. Because of camera tracking, the background environment interacts with the camera movement like it would in a real life environment. And using an LED screen also really helps the actor because it's easier to time things when you can see it in real life. And it also removes things like color spilling from green screen and blue screen. Another benefit of virtual production is that it makes the traditional production process a lot more iterative. First of all, because of the location, you don't have to fly your crew all over the world to shoot what you need on content. But mainly because CGI content that was created in previous, that you can see here in the pink part of the graph, can be adjusted in the final edit without the need for reshooting everything again. So virtual production is all about efficiency. But in 2022, when our founders visited a virtual production stage, we saw an opportunity to improve this process even more with generative AI. Because creating the environments is a very, like the 3D environments for the backgrounds is a very time-consuming and very expensive process. The starting cost per scene is $150,000. And 50 to 75% of the shots in film production can benefit from a much simpler approach. This concept is called 2.5D. It's how we simulate a sense of depth by separating image layers over the Z-depth. And by doing this, we can still use camera tracking for realistic interaction, but also use generative AI to set this up quickly and accurately and to give full control over the visuals. So Cuebric is a browser-based application that offers a collection of creative AI tools to streamline production processes with 2.5D and what we call 2.75D workflows. Going from concept to camera in minutes, let me show you a little bit of that process. So you can see it only takes a few steps to be able to start shooting. And we made sure to remove the steps that are the most repetitive and time-consuming, like rotoscoping and manual inpainting, for example. Step one is basically preparing the scene. I will show you in a minute how you can make this an iterative creative process and the steps that involved. But once you are happy with your 2D concept, that's where you go into step two, where you dimensionalize your scene by choosing the foreground, background, and midground objects. So in Cuebric, we really work with layers and being able to segment the image into pieces. Then step 3 is camera simulation. We have a parallax tool where you can quickly look how certain small camera movements would look like. And step 4 is exporting a depth package. So we use AI to estimate the depth of the image layers and also to estimate how far these layers should be from each other in space. So that when you get to step 5 and you import it into a media server, you have a very realistic, almost 3D scene ready to shoot your content in. And then you're basically ready to shoot cinematic renders. So let me show you a little bit more about the creative process of step 1 and 2. So first of all, we can always start the process with a matte painting or a photo. Like any of the tools you use in Cuebric, you can use on your own images. But you can also choose to use generative AI to start a concept by describing what you want to see. In this case, we, for example, described a futuristic dome in a mountain landscape, and you get different image variations. And by changing the text, you can also just kind of play around, fine-tuning the concept to how you like it. Then first I'll tell you about our cinematic generation models. So we have a few models that we give the user to generate these concepts with. Our classic model is a warm, romantic, soft look. It has the Hollywood haze, golden hour kind of style. Our moody model is more with cold colors, high contrast, and hard lighting. It's the kind of style that you would expect in thrillers. And sci-fi is our epic model. It has a more hyper-realism and does very well on futuristic concepts. And our standard model is very flexible, and the style is more influenced by prompting. And the latest addition is our graphic model, and it brings a very aesthetically pleasing animation look. So in-painting is the process of changing parts of your image with generative AI. And it's the favorite tool of most of our users because it quickly lets you change a detail that you want to see differently. When your director is looking over your shoulder and would have just wanted to see more stones in the foreground, you just select an area with a mask, type what you want to see, and then you get, again, like 4 variations of what you want to, of what you can choose from. And it works extremely well. It takes both the concept of the image and the lighting into account. And the app also provides a whole bunch of advanced settings, both for image generation and in-painting. Then there is a concept called outpainting, which is very similar to in-painting, but it's also directed by a prompt, but lets you extend the image beyond its borders. So in Cuebric, we have a fill option that lets you fill in any transparent area that you want to fill in. And if you use a mask, it will just take the part that you masked. Now, our segmentation models, hover and click is one of the two methods you can use. And as the title already reveals, it lets you hover over an area, and when you click, you're able to segment, like cut it out of the image. And this uses an AI for object recognition. And the cutout area that you get when you select something and cut it to a new layer can then, of course, very easily be in-painted with the fill methods from the previous slides. Depth segmentation is the process where we have a slider and you have 2 ends that you can manipulate. One is the foreground and one is the background. You can make a similar selection, but yeah, based on the depth estimation of the image to cut it out to a new layer or to copy it. Now, the size limitation of image generation is still in HD, which is quite low for standards of most LED walls and video production requirements. But while we work on a solution that will enable more possibilities, we have implemented the upscaling tool. And this can be used to add detail that's not there, And it makes it possible to scale your image to a higher resolution. Okay, so here I have a video that will show you a little bit of the whole process in action. So this scene starts out with generating an image. And once the image is generated, then this person outpaints it to the resolution of the screen, or at least the aspect ratio of the LED wall that it's going to be used on. And then he starts the process of segmenting. So you can see he uses hover and click and then cuts it to a new layer. And he does the same for the mid-ground elements, like for example these planets and the mountains, making a foreground, background, and then filling in the missing pieces with inpainting. And it works very well. And when you create, for example, this mask and fill in this part with more of like floor or mountain, anything that you describe, you can really build your layers quite easily. Any parts that are missing can be filled in. And yeah, and with a bit of rearranging, you get really nice background that's filled fully. So when you start moving the camera, you have a beautiful parallax without any gaps in the middle. And this scene was used in a professional production, which I will show you in a minute. It's still some manual process to perfect everything, but the result is also really amazing and high quality. So now you can see he resizes the image a little bit to create what you could call a frustum in virtual production, and also to simulate what camera movement could look like. And then he is able to export the depth package. And then I would love to show you the results. So, yeah. This is the result. It's a production that would normally cost thousands of dollars, but the whole production was made from the moment of brainstorming about the concept all the way to shooting it in less than 1 day. And it was directed by Quinn Halleck and produced a few weeks ago together with the Cuebric team. So that's one example. Then we have another example that was also made during those same days. The director sent in the request in the morning, they iterated on the concept and in painting a few things, and they shoot it the same day, which is crazy because when you would produce a background as an environment in a game engine, it could take days or even weeks to have a first version ready that looks realistic. Right. So as we create faster and more budget solution for background creation for LED stages, we bring a lot of medium and small studios on board that quickly want to iterate high quality content for their clients. But we also democratize professional filmmaking to any storytellers, content creation, and as we like to call them, bedroom directors. So this is an example of how you could set up your virtual production stage in your own living room by just using a TV and a simple camera tracking app on mobile. And we also found that some of our users like to use Cuebric even differently, which is really fun to see. AI can be very interesting for a lot of creative applications. So this is an example of how it could work for architectures by going from a sketch to a concept to an actual like a look and feel. A similar concept could work for product design, where you have a sketch and you would just want to iterate on ideas what that could look like. And this is actually one of the things like platform games that have a parallax background, that, as you can see, also created with Cuebric. Okay, so let me explain to you a little bit more about these 2.75D or near 3D assets. Because while working with 2.5D workflows, we also found that 2.5D on its own is quite limiting, especially when you have close by foreground elements. A very small zoom can already make you pass the edges of that plate and immediately get the viewer out of the 3D illusion. And this is an example where you can see that a little on the left. And you can see that the edges become quite sharp and visible. We partnered up with Disguise in 2023 to find a solution to this. And Disguise is the industry-leading media server that is behind a lot of major productions, and for example, the Las Vegas Sphere and all the Taylor Swift shows. So they have a lot of ideas on how we could improve this. And together we found a solution to use AI to displace the image layers based on the depth estimations. So together with these guys, we released a depth package in December 2023, and we called these near 3D assets, depth package, or a plug and play 3D solution. But they are not fully 3D, of course, because you cannot go really 360 degrees around them. So that's why they're like near 3D, more like 2.75D. But I'd love to show you our marketing video that we worked on together in December.
Yeah, just noting, Sky, we might not be getting audio push on this video.
Oh, you don't hear the audio?
No.
Oh, that's so sad. Oh, I wish I knew. I wish I knew sooner.
Maybe you could just share the link.
Yeah,
looks like it's on
definitely.
YouTube.
Let me find it. Yes. Did you hear the audio in the other videos or not at all?
No.
Oh, okay, that's very sad. Okay, I will share the links right after this presentation. So let me explain to you basically what they're saying also in the video. So what is this depth package exactly? So it's an archive with all the different layers, but also the depth representation of these exported layers, and a file that contains all the depth information that you need to set it up into the media server. It's a 2.5D file format, and it's automatically recognized in Disguise 2D layers as an asset. So right now we built this bridge with Disguise, and it was a really great success that we have celebrated in December. But we want to open up this 2.75D workflow to an even larger crowd of creative professionals and bedroom directors. So that's why we have a really exciting new development to share with you today, because May 2024 are basically just today, we exported our very first USD scene straight from Cuebric. And it's completely fresh out of the oven and ready for testing. So in the next few months, we will release a tech package with both FBX and USD export to support any 3D workflow. So let's collaborate on democratizing high-quality creative production. We are open to beta testing, especially with our new 3D release. We would love to hear your feedback on any of the suggestions you may have. And this QR leads to our website where you can sign up, but also feel free to contact me directly for collaboration. Thank you so much. I will share with you all the links to the videos. Let's get started with any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Sky. Yeah, just checking in if folks want to come off mute and ask Sky and team any questions.
Yeah, it looks like Elliot has a question. Elliot Montgomery.
That was a clap, but I can ask a question.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Also, just applauding. Really nice stuff.
Nice.
Quick question. Yeah, I was just wondering if there are any thoughts for future rollouts where you might be able to interact more actively with these backgrounds. So, like the picture where the person was sitting by the fire and there was a background of a forest. Like, could there be a way for that person to walk into the trees eventually? How would we blend into this 2.5D or 2.75D in more interactive ways, if possible? Maybe not.
Yeah, so
I think Andre, Andre has an answer to that.
So I think I can best answer that question. Yeah, it's a very good question. It's something that we're looking into. So I think what we should really kind of take as a given is that the 2D and 3D worlds for the longest time, for the past 50 years, have been very separate things that you couldn't move from one to another. And 2.5D made it a little bit better with the different digital editing tools. Cuebric is making it right now even better with 2.75D with this kind of shaped things. And what we are looking into, what we're looking at right now is that all the new developments kind of blur these lines even more as time goes on. We already have a plan to kind of keep on extending, keep on improving the qualities and the depth of each one of these layers, with the goal of actually kind of completely merging the 2D and 3D worlds. This is something that we're kind of only starting to work on, but our goal in the next years is to give people the ability to edit a complete 2D image editor environment, and then in just a few seconds, using AIs, create a whole 3D scene out of that which you're seeing, and kind of and be able to actually shoot. And that's what you're also talking about, kind of moving into those trees, that you'll be able to either in-paint those things by hand, or they would just be filled in automatically to kind of create this actual 3D scene, right? That's the next step here.
Great, thank you. And I have a question from, Matthew, did you want to say?
Oh, if somebody else has raised their hand, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have some preset questions that I have ready to go. One question is as far as the resolution of output, can you talk a little bit more about whether you can support 8K or HDR?
Sure. So right now in Cuebric, we can support 8K images, especially exporting. Image generation is still in progress to make it higher than HD. We are also working behind the scenes on being able to work with higher dynamic range, so like 10-bit, 12-bit maybe. So yeah, these are in the making, but right now you're able to upload, export 8K. Just image generation is not there yet.
Yeah, so I can add to that answer a little bit. So when it comes to resolution and increasing it linearly, that's really not a problem. That's really something that can be solved quite easily. When it comes to HDR itself, it's a much harder problem. What we are going for in the future is being able to work in just standard range in SDR in 8-bit, and then being able to use tools similar to upscaling that actually alter your image into HDR after you're done as a kind of intermediary step before we will support full HDR workflow and image generation.
Great, thank you. And Elmar, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was curious whether have you ever run into a situation where when you roll onto set and you create your backgrounds and you film your production, then the creative then goes back and actually changes their mind after the fact, and they're, when you basically have your pixels baked in, did you have to respond to that?
Yeah, okay, so you mean like afterwards, after shooting, to be able to change those things? Yeah, so I think that's the nice thing about virtual production is because if they're shot with an environment that you can change afterwards, you should be able to replace it behind as well afterwards. So I'm sure that's possible. I don't think we have actually encountered that in the scenes that I just showed you, but yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm
Fantastic.
gonna just start that answer a little bit, kind of looking into the future. It's a problem that we want to solve as best as we can, and one of the ways to solve it in the future that we are looking into is the USD format that kind of has a two-way connection to some of the biggest virtual production stages, so that when you load that USD format and you have your shot and you're unhappy about the kind of object, you can just easily change that one object, the color or its whole scene, and then kind of reshoot with the same camera movements and the same other things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Kian, do you have a...
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Like, it's a very cool tool, and it's a fantastic talk as well. And I noticed like lots of the examples showing are the scenes outdoor. I think, of course, like it can create very strong motion parallax kind of effect when you have, objects lay with the distance further away. So I'm just a bit curious, like what will happen, like, and how will behave if you have like an indoor scene when you have distance like relatively close to each other, when probably more details will be required for those images, and in particular when you do, like, for example, the 3D reconstruction, will that have some, I don't know, how will it look like? I'm just curious in general.
Yeah, so for example, for interiors, we had a few use cases where we were able to use 2.5D is really like difficult with interiors, exactly because what you mentioned, like things are getting really close by, and that's where 2.75D makes it a lot easier, and you have a lot more flexibility in camera movements. But usually the nice thing is that in these 3D spaces, these different kind of environments, for example, an interior can come more in almost like a box shape. So instead of like having these places that are very like more behind each other, it becomes more of a box shape where you would display these 3D shapes in. Good question.
Matthew.
Yeah, I had a question, I guess, kind of following up from Elliot's original question about potentially interactive graphics. I was curious if there's any plans to support video or animation. We're seeing a lot of buzz around right now, text to video. Is there any plans at Cuebric to experiment or explore this?
Yeah, we have definitely some ideas on how we would like to animate the different plates in these 3D environments, but text to video, as we see now in some of the tools, is still something that gives you quite little control. So we would not go for like fully text to video, because for example, camera tracking becomes almost impossible if you type something and get complete video background. But using any kinds of animations to make the different image layers slightly animate, like for example, water movement or like tree movement, that is something that we're very much looking into.
Yeah, I think I can also kind of speak to text to video. You're completely right, Sky, when you say that text to video is like in my personal opinion, it's a very nice thing that you can play with. But you know, the little amount of control, right? And of course, the videos export in pixel space. The very little amount of control that actually gives you is a lot of kind of blocks a lot of creativity from the people. So I think one of the most important, we're definitely going to support text to video in the future as you know, as just a side feature. But I think the main feature that will actually expand upon the Cuebric's goal would be things like image to video, where you'd be able to again create your whole scene in that 2D environment, 2.5D environment, and then animate the backgrounds to actually show some things.
Great, thank you guys. I have one question around some of the features that you guys have on the roadmap.
Sure. So right now we're of course fully focused on our USD FBX export capabilities, which will be released in probably July. So we're